Morning all. Today we are going to solve a question from the IGCSE paper. This is based on an algorithm, and what is required for these kind of questions is to understand what the algorithm is doing. In order to understand what the algorithm is doing, we need to do something called as a dry run, which is basically executing it on paper. So how do you go about doing it? Just keep a trace of all the variables at every point of time. So if you take this algorithm in here, the pseudocode in here, the first statement is C is assigned 0. So there is a variable called as C and its initial value is a 0. Next statement is an input statement where you are inputting the value of a pin number. So it's an integer, obviously. So the that integer value, it is stored into a variable called as pin. This is your input value. Now, in the third statement, you're assigning this input value into a variable called as x. So x and input, both of these variables refer to the same input value. Now we have a loop statement inside this, which is a repeat until. Now what this kind of a loop statement does, this is an exit control loop because the condition is being checked at the exit of the loop. So now repeat until is generally used for validation of inputs. Validation is to check whether the value entered is a valid one or legitimate one or not. So to do that, we keep repeating this loop as long as the value of x is greater than or equal to 1. So the repeat until is until x is less than 1. So the moment x becomes less than 1 is when the loop will stop executing. So within this loop, we have two statements that keep getting executed every single time. Now, the first statement is a normal division. This is a quotient division. Quotient division is where you get the quotient of the division as the result. And that result is being stored back into the same variable x. Now, supposing for x, if I take the value of 545 or 543, when I do x divided by 10, what happens is the quotient of this division is what will be the answer, which is 54. And 3, of course, is the remainder that will be lost in this. So you end up only getting 54 as the result. Now, that 54 is stored back into the same variable. So basically, you will be replacing it with this new value. And every time you do that kind of a division, you're incrementing the variable of C. So in the case of 543, the first time I'm doing the division, okay, I'm just showing the divisions in here. The first time you do the division, C is incremented by 1. Now the next time, because this is in a loop, the next time you do the division, C is incremented by one more value, and still we have the quotient which is greater than or equal to 1. So you continue the division. Now here is where the quotient is becoming 0, which means that this loop will have to stop at this point. So after this division, the value of C became 3. So at the when the value of the quotient turns 0 is when you stop the loop. Now you are checking the value of C. After the loop, you will be checking the value. If it is not 5, then you print an error message. But if it is equal to, you print a message called as pin OK. So technically speaking, what you're doing in here is to count the number of digits, because every time you are eliminating one digit from the given number, you are incrementing the variable C by 1. So ultimately, the value of C will be the total number of digits. So the purpose of this algorithm is count number of digits. The validation in here is being done to check whether the number of digits you entered is 5 or not. So if it is 5, then the pin number is a valid value. If it is not 5, then the error message will be generated. It's an invalid value. So this is what is the purpose of our algorithm in here. Now we look at the questions. Now the first question in here says that this is the input value. So what is the value of C and what message would be output if the following pins were entered? So the first value is 51020. So what would be the value of C? Because C is storing the total number of digits of the number, C would be 5 in this case, and the output would be pin OK. Whereas in this case, the number of digits is 4, and then error in pin entered. I think that's the output. Yeah. So that's the output message. So this will be your answer for this question. Now going on to the next question, what type of validation check is being carried out in here? So you are actually counting the number of digits. The number of digits of a number is the length of the number. So this would be a length check, because you're checking for whether it has 5 digits or not. Thank you.